We are back. Giants baseball, past, present, and future. I'm Ralph Tyko. One of my co-hosts is with me, Timmy Haller from the desert. How are you, sir?
Good evening. Good, Ralph. How's everything up north?
Oh, good. And Patrick is here, I hear.
I don't know.
I thought I heard it. I thought I heard him in the background. Things are great up north. Sunny day in the Bay Area, and it's November and 70 degrees in Alameda. I am not a complainer at all weather-wise, and it's always beautiful in the desert, and especially when it's not in the middle of summer. Am I correct?
Well, yeah, but it was still 91 degrees today, so that's still a little warm for me, especially the first week of November.
Yeah, true. But it's a dry warmth. There's no
Yes.
humidity. So
We did get a little bit of rain earlier in the week, and that's always lovely. Like 4 or 5 days a year it'll rain down here, so I just get all googly and giggly when it rains, but
yeah.
I love the rain.
Timmy, those pictures that you put up of views of San Francisco, did you take those pictures?
Not all of them. No, some of them are mine. I still have an OM1 from when I was a teenager. I was given it as a gift from my dad. I fell in love with it. It's a very, old school, non-digital camera. So there are some that are mine. And then some I completely violate somebody's intellectual property and throw them up there. But there are a few that I will take credit for.
Well, you should put the ones that are yours and say this is a picture I took because some of them are really outstanding.
Well, on occasion I will. I'll throw it up there that I did that one, or somebody will ask, "Hey, is that one yours?" And I'll say, "Yeah, I did that one." Or
You're a
sure,
talented Renaissance man.
Oh yeah, old school. I'm a deadhead. What can I tell you?
And we're talking film, right?
Right, absolutely. Yeah, 35 millimeter.
Tell me whether or not, no matter how many pixels you get, you can create film. So I've heard it both ways. What's your opinion? You could create...
Well, you can do a lot with the old camera that I have in terms of apertures and light and color and all of those things. You can actually adjust it on the camera itself, so you can get different effects and different images taking that one same shot. It just depends on how you have everything set up with your f speed, your light, allowing your light to come in through the lens, and how long you want it to, how quick do you want that shutter to close and capture that. Sometimes you can leave it open I have a timer for 3 minutes, and it'll take a photograph over a 3-minute span. So it's really interesting,
sunset.
And depending on the subjects and, if I'm doing something, like if I took photographs of something that had, let's say horses running or baseball players, I'd want a quick shot. So I would capture it as quickly as I possibly could. But if I was doing something that was panoramic or a sunset or a sunrise, I would want it to just completely soak in and saturate as much light as I could on that one picture.
Wow.
And it takes a lot of, it takes a lot of tinkering. Yeah, I've got a couple different lenses. One's a wide angle lens, one's a standard, and one's a telephoto. I can take shots from, I think it's a long way away. I don't know how many meters it goes, but I can take shots that, are a long way away, but they look closer than they really are. The guy that really kind of helped me a lot was this guy named Dennis Dupois. Used to be the photographer for the Giants in the 70s and early 80s. And Dennis taught me a lot. He was always running around with his gear, and I would, really kind of just pay attention to what he was doing, and he would, when he had some downtime, he would teach me a little bit. The one thing he told me always, make sure your subject is in the middle of your photograph.
Well,
And,
okay.
you know, but there are some shots that you can get as you get a little bit more creative that, you know, that the subject isn't always right. Yeah, and you can have one thing in focus and another thing not in focus or a little blurrier. But it's a lot of fun. I like to tinker with it, you know.
There's a great picture on my website, on the website of the show, Comfortably Zoned Radio, and it's under In and Out of Focus show. Sam Zervitz does a podcast, and the picture on it is out of focus for him, but in focus for his granddaughter. So it's really, and it fits the In and Out of Focus, the name of the show. It fits it perfectly. So I understand what you're saying, and that's an art too. Yeah. Would you say that the art of photography has been advanced by the digital thing?
I would absolutely say that it does, and it has. And for a while, and this was probably about 6 years ago, I worked with a photographer who was world-renowned. I actually represented him. I sold some of his photography. His name is Peter Lick, and he was one of the most renowned photographers in the world. I mean, he sold pieces for over $1 million. So, and that's for photography. You know, we're talking about photographic art as opposed to, you know, the mediums that we're used to, like, say, just, you know, very simplistic oil on canvas, that type of thing, or acrylics on canvas. But Peter Lick he has gone above and beyond what our, you know, the old weekend photographer, you know, family guy or lady or wife or whomever likes to take photographs. This guy has made it obviously his profession.
Has a dark room in his basement and does it as a...
Well, no, now he has a full studio in Las Vegas, Nevada, and he has 8 to 10 retail galleries throughout the U.S. and Australia. So this guy's got a multi-million-dollar operation going on, and he sells these prints.
Sold some of his work.
Absolutely, I did, yeah.
Wow.
And there was a time when he had a gallery here in Rancho Mirage, down here in the desert, and I worked for that gallery, and I did really well. I enjoyed it. It was an opportunity for me to just kind of do some of that work. I love art. I've always been a big art person. I got involved in a couple of galleries years ago when I sold the metal manufacturing. The timing was horrible, but I bought a couple galleries up in Santa Fe. It was not a good business endeavor for me, but at the same time, I worked with several artists, European, Russian, French, Finnish artists from around the United States, and I sold their, most of it was acrylics and oils on canvas.
Now, what was your clientele? Who did you sell to?
Oh, I would sell to, you know, Bert and Ethel, that, you know, that just loved really nice artwork, to very wealthy people that were willing to spend well into 6 figures on a piece of work. So, you know, it varied. It would have been anybody that just appreciated the art and had the ability to afford it. It's a luxury item. It's a luxury item.
What did you do specifically to reach the people? How did you market what you were doing?
Well, you know, in Santa Fe, it is considered, you know, one of the more upscale art communities in the United States, if not the world. You know, of course, there are places that have more local sort of taste to particular art and art forms. Santa Fe is considered, you know, one of the one of the world's greatest art destinations. So you would get a lot of people that would just walk in off the street that specifically came to Santa Fe to buy art. I mean, that's the reason they came to Santa Fe. I mean, it's a Condé Nast type of community. You know, it's a destination place. People go there to relax and enjoy the beautiful area that it's in. But
it is beautiful.
you know,
I'll tell you, if you're looking for sunsets, there.
Oh goodness, yeah,
right.
Unbelievable.
New Mexico, all over New Mexico, but especially Santa Fe, and
yeah.
So, wow, it's a beautiful place to be in a mellow environment, and yeah, you've had a lot of experiences, Timmy.
Well, I have, and I kind of enjoyed the choices and decisions I've made. That was a great opportunity for me because it was doing something that I absolutely love. Kind of like the work that I do now. It's much different. But in anything, if it's sales or you're you know, representing somebody or you're consulting or you're counseling and doing therapy for people, it's conversation. It's all. If it's radio, it's a conversation.
You have to have a passion for whatever it is you're doing, and then
right.
it shows through in your voice.
And you have to have some knowledge. You don't have to be an Einstein in what you're doing, but you have to have some compassion and passion for what it is you do, who you represent, and you want to be able to hopefully add to the quality of life for the person or people that are buying whatever you're trying to communicate to them about, whether it's trying to get sober or buying a beautiful painting, you know. Or if you want to talk to them about the Cubs winning a World Series, whatever.
So what we're trying to do and what we're trying to do is pass on our life experiences and our memories to future generations. And one of the memories that you treasure most in your life, and the station this week is doing a Willie Mays tribute, so that the coincidence is that we're going to talk to somebody, Timmy, you're a guy who knows him, you're almost a stepson to him. And you spent time with it. You spent time in the Giants clubhouse, and your dad was a teammate and a friend. And I want to, because we're going to put this on the page where we retired Willie's number 24, and
sure.
Mark Weiss, who's another podcaster on the network, and I talked last week about Willie and mostly his New York days, and when he came back to the Mets, because Mark lived there, I was on the West Coast, he was on the East Coast. Now, I got to see Willie from 66 when I came out to California until he was traded to the Mets I think it must have been 74, if I'm not mistaken. It's traded for Charlie Williams. And, no, I'm sorry, it was 72.
I think it was 73. And that was the year the Mets, they went to the World Series that year as well.
But I think he was traded in 72, and they won the next year with him, if I'm not mistaken. And I'm reasonably sure that's the case. But that be it what it may, I got to see Willie in a ton of his prime, and Mark got to see him, he's a little younger than I am, when he was past his prime, and we talked about that on the show that's already up there honoring Willie. And what I'd like to do is add to that, and I'd like you to just free flow, young man, of Timmy Haller, Willie Mays. How did it all get started, and what are your early memories, and go from there. I hope you're still there. Oh, my God.
I'm here.
Oh.
There are two definitive sides that my memory banks of Willie Mays. And the first is obviously the player. And what I recall of Willie Mays, and it's a collage of memories. It's just brilliant in color, in my face, collage. It's like a movie.
Newsreel.
And it is. It's a newsreel, and it just continues to play. As long as I'll be able to remember it, it'll play in my head for the rest of my life. Willie could run and glide faster than any other ball player I've ever seen. His mobility, his athletic mobility, when he hit a ball, when he struck a ball, the way he would run to first and round first or stretch that hit into a double. I just remember the physicalness of it, the way he was built, and the way his body functioned when he ran. I remember him making. Oh gosh, it was all fluid. There was nothing. There were no hitches. There was nothing that obstructed his ability to move from point A to point B ever. I mean, it was just one fluid thing, and I just had all of these memories of him either running the bases, hitting the ball and running the bases, sliding, or to even up that ante, his ability to cover ground, make a catch in center field, and then throw the ball in excess of 90 miles an hour on a rope to whatever base he was trying to cut down a base runner at.
He had as good an arm as any right fielder, save maybe Clemente or Carl Furillo in the old days.
Yeah, and probably Dave Parker would be one of those guys. Ellis Valentine also had one of those great arms, but they had different body types. So their ball coming out of their frame was different than Willie's ball coming out of his frame. Because Willie Mays was 5'10" and weighed 210 pounds. So he was built like he was built like a brick wall.
Right.
and everything was chiseled and cut on his body. And of course, this was way before weightlifting.
With a 31-inch waist, he had like 44 shoulders, and it just that is
unbelievable.
Yeah, unreal.
So my memories of him are, the first category of memory is as a player, but it's like this exactly. It's like a newsreel. It's just his ability to run, and he had a little bit of a bow-legged type of thing going on too, where his leg, it almost looked like he just got off of a horse. And I think that contributed to his ability to run so quickly and fast.
And
because of the way he was structured.
Back for a glance and not lose his step.
Right. He'd lose his helmet, but he wouldn't lose his step.
Right, but he would not. And it was like he had 2 or 3 different gears that he could shift into, depending on what it was.
And then my second set of memories, which are far more profound than Willie the ball player, which,
these are the ones.
In my opinion, Willie was the greatest baseball player ever in the history of Major League Baseball. That I can, arguably he was the greatest baseball player. And I think that there are a lot of people that would agree with me, and then of course there would be some that would lead to great conversation. But I believe Mays, Aaron, and Ruth are your top 3 baseball players of all time. And I'm talking about the whole thing. Offensively, defensively, running.
Order.
Right. I still think Aaron No, and and I still think in a lot of ways, the older I get, the better I think Aaron was than Ruth, because of his ability to drive in runs and run and play great left field. Ruth was a little bit encumbered physically. He was a great hitter, obviously, but he couldn't run like Aaron or Mays.
No.
And so
it's true, but he could win 20 games.
he could, but he didn't pitch as often as he should have when he went to the Yankees either. So, that unfortunately we didn't get to see all of that, his greatness as a pitcher.
And you could just as easily throw Joe DiMaggio into the equation,
or Mantle, or Barry Bonds, there's a collection of guys that could all get into this conversation.
Absolutely.
And deservedly so.
If you want to combine showmanship with talent, and Willie always said, I'm an entertainer.
Yes.
And interesting, his hero as a kid was Joe DiMaggio. He idolized Joe DiMaggio.
And there was a thing about Joe and the way he ran around. He was graceful, too.
Oh, yeah.
DiMaggio was just so, and Barry Bonds also had a flair about him. So did Roberto Clemente.
I happened to see a YouTube of Joe DiMaggio running around first, headed for second, when Gianfrido made that catch in the World Series. And for the only time, Joe DiMaggio exhibited emotion.
He kicked the dirt.
And he kicked at the dirt as he ran. But he did that so gracefully.
Oh, it's like a deer. I mean, it was like a deer in full stride, It was like somebody shot at him and he had to stop for a minute and then continue his kick. It was, and he was not one to show emotion. Anything like that was just, you never saw anything like that out of Joe. Ever.
Right. But Willie, you saw Willie's emotions, everything Willie did. I still see him as a Met on his knees. At
home plate.
At home plate, somebody sliding in, they were called out, and he disagreed.
That was him. Right.
Well, his hands were on his head. Was it him sliding in? Was it?
It was him. It was him, and it was a boom boom play at the plate. Yogi came out, and the whole argument was that they missed the tag.
Right.
The ball beat him to the plate, but Willie his argument was he didn't tag him.
But my point is, and you're a photographer, and I love photography, and I point and shoot myself every chance I get. But the emotion on his face, he wore the situation. Whereas DiMaggio, you couldn't tell if it was the second inning, if it was the last game of the World Series. With him, it could have been spring training. That same stoic look. Willie, everything was a big laugh or a bad grin, that kind of thing. Go on with your stories. Tell me.
So but beyond his incredible ability as a baseball player and an athlete, I remember him from a humanistic side because I got to know him. And I'll tell you, he was just the most sweetest, gentlest, soft-spoken man, that anybody could ever want to be around. I never heard a cuss word come out of his mouth. He was always respectful to everybody that was around him. He never acted like he was the greatest baseball player in the world, and he was. He didn't come across like that to the press, to his teammates, or to the people that he played against, his opponents. Case in point, let's just go to probably one of the most prolific fights in Major League Baseball history. When Marichal and Roseboro were going at it at Candlestick Park, Willie came in to get in the middle of that, to break it up.
He held Roseboro's head.
And he held Roseboro's head. That,
I think
to
he
me,
in Marichal for 5 years after.
no, that epitomizes to me the type of man that Willie Mays is. Not was, but is still today, to this day, the sweetest, kindest, softest, gentle man I know. I was able to see him and visit with him shortly when I was at Davenport service early this spring at AT&T Park. And he can't see, can't hear well, can't see a lick, but he grabbed my arm and made sure that I sat down next to him and talked to me for a while. And because he couldn't see me, he grabbed me and pulled me down to sit with him. And his hand wouldn't leave my arm. Other instances, several years ago, probably 10, 12 years ago now, I remember being down in Scottsdale and the team had gone off to play an exhibition game at another facility. But Barry and Willie were both in the clubhouse. I went down there and I sat and talked to these guys for 2.5 hours, just the three of us sitting down at a table in the clubhouse at Scottsdale. And just the three of us. I mean, and those things, those things will never leave my memory banks, ever. Just the opportunity and the laughs that we had and the stories that we told, all of us collectively. But, with Willie Mays and Barry Bonds sitting with me, they certainly had a lot more to say than I ever could. And so I was very, all ears to that. And I'll remember one time, and it was just a couple of years ago, I think it was the 2014 season, walking to the clubhouse downstairs in the tunnel, going down to the Giants clubhouse, and Willie was being golf carted out to go to his seats. And, but he hadn't started yet. They were sitting in the cart and they hadn't started going. And I walked up to him and I just put my hand on his shoulder because he couldn't see me, couldn't tell who I was. And I just told him, I love you, Willie, like that. And he knew it was me. Jimmy, what are you doing? Give me a big old hug. Or sitting in Mike Murphy's office before a ball game, just Murph and I and Willie, and just shooting the bull for 30 minutes. Just the memories that I have from him as a human being, his humanistic side, as great of a baseball player he is and was, and what he means to the game, our game of American Major League Baseball. As great as he was a player, his being surpasses his playing ability. To me. Now this is my opinion.
I was on the corner as a kid. Somebody in the neighborhood was a Duke Snider fan. Somebody was a Mickey Mantle fan. I was a Willie fan. So I always had somebody to argue with. Nice to hear after all these years that the person I argued with and for when I was 10 years old is a better human being than a baseball player because...
Well, I think those two guys that you're talking about, though, too, those other two great center fielders from New York are great. They were wonderful human beings as well. I mean, we know that Mickey had some of his demons with alcohol and some other carryings on, but they were loved and well respected as well.
No question about it, but I'm just going back to being a kid and thinking, Willie Mays is this, Willie Mays. It was instinctual. I had to be a Giant fan when I was in 1951. My grandfather took me to all 3 baseball parks in New York: Ebbets Field, Yankee Stadium, and the Polo Grounds. And he took me in 1951 before Willie was called up and after. And he explained the lineup to me. He explained how they reconfigured things after they called Willie up and moved Bobby Thompson around and this, that, and the other thing. And those memories are with me for life. And and you got to converse with the man. I'm sure you remember conversations between your dad and him, stories that they shared. Anything we don't know about as fans, as outsiders, about Willie that would surprise us?
You know, I really don't know anything more than that. You know, his personal life was pretty well exposed, I think, when he was living in the Bay Area and that kind of thing. But this is what I think. Some of the things that I remember most vividly that, of course, you know, the average person wouldn't know about was the time that Willie would spend in the training room, because he played so hard and so all out all the time that he spent quite a bit of time getting massage or being in the whirlpool. And my dad as well played a lot, especially as a catcher. So those two guys would sit next to each other on adjacent tables to each other. And I would sit there with them. The two of them would sit there getting, Dad's knees would be getting iced, or he'd be getting a shoulder rub, and Willie would be getting a leg and a back massage, or be sitting in the whirlpool, or they would both be in the training room, and I'd be sitting in there listening to the two of them talk. And it would range and vary from, you know, everything from, what are we going to do Sunday after the ball game? Are we going to do a barbecue at Davies, or are you guys coming over to our house, or what are we doing? That to who was pitching that day. You know, what kind of a breaking ball did he have? How do you think Dad would ask Willie, how do we pitch him? How do you think we should pitch a certain guy? Everything would range. Their whole the conversation would range from what we having for dinner to how
would they talk?
How do we pitch Ed Cranepool today?
Would they easily? By the way, and I can
fastballs down the gut.
Right, no problem whatsoever.
No.
Let him hit the fastball, and he does that 3 times in a week. Then throw him a curveball. That was Ed Cranepool. But did they talk world situations, politics? Things weren't as crazy as they are today on some levels, but on other levels they really were, because you're talking about the 60s. There was big change going on. Did they talk about societal changes?
They really didn't, you know, because the subculture of a baseball player playing Major League Baseball, they were a lot of it, in a lot of ways, they were sheltered from what was going on in the world, because they were in their own little cocoon, if you will. They all lived together. They played together. They were brothers together. So it wasn't apparent, at least between my father and Willie and any of the other black ball players on the team, that was never really even discussed.
Right.
Because there was they were colorblind. I mean, there was
not only did they have to be colorblind, but they had to be almost a-nationalistic, because you had Puerto Ricans, you had Dominicans. Jose Pagan was from Puerto Rico. The Alous and Marichal were Dominicans.
Right.
So and were they black? Were they white? You know, that kind of craziness.
Right. And it just seemed like, at least
someday,
through my dad's eyes, he didn't see any of that. I mean, he witnessed what was going on in our world with the riots and the killings and just the atrocities that were happening, especially like in Watts and in the South and Chicago and certain big urban areas. But, you know, in a lot of ways, my father was greatly affected by it. It bothered him deeply. But it didn't affect his relationships, these deep cord relationships that he had with his brothers that he played with. And you know, it's an interesting dynamic, really, when you think about how does somebody in that era of our history, you know, but that he did it. My dad would walk right through that with, you know, his head up. chest out, and very gracious and proud to be able to be doing what he's doing with the men he was able to do it with.
Right. You and I have talked about the fact that the Giants from the outside were perceived as a team that was cliquish, and you absolutely dispel any of that book.
I don't even see where that comes from. I guess that might be a media side of it. I mean, sports writers may have, but I never saw that coming from Dickey or any of the beat writers with the Giants. I really don't. I don't recall that being an issue. I don't.
In the very early years of, remember in like '62,
right.
You were just a kid.
Right.
But anything you saw dispels all of that, and that's nice. As a kid growing up as a Giant fan, that's very nice. I quoted something Willie said that was humorous on the show I did with Mark Weiss. He was being interviewed after he won the batting title in 1954, and he beat out Don Mueller, the right fielder, who was kind of a stationary guy in right, very little range. And Monty Irvin had very little range in left, and there was a lot of outfield that Willie covered, and he did it very well.
Especially at the Polo Grounds, right.
There's the Polo Grounds, right, the biggest outfield going, and he had two really slow guys. Monty was well past his prime in left, and Mueller was kind of a slow guy in right. So they're talking to the press after the final game of the season, and Willie beats out Don Mueller by like a percentage point, a quarter of a percentage point for the batting title. And Mueller's a nice, humble guy, and he's sitting talking to the press. He says, I don't think it's any real disgrace to be beaten out by the greatest center fielder in the history of the game, or something like that. And Willie looks up at the press, and at Mueller says, greatest right fielder, too. He's covering both left field and right. So he was quick. He had
a great sense of humor, but he was humble.
Humor, and he was also very, very bright, baseball-wise. He said when in 1962, in the final game of the World Series, when Matty Alou was held up at third base by the third base coach, Whitey Lockman, who was the first baseman of my youth with the New York Giants, he holds Matty Alou up, and they asked him after the game, what would have you done if you got a stop sign coming around third? And Matty Alou was fast. So Willie says, I would have run right through it, and I would have taken the plate.
Yeah.
And he would have. So it isn't just your speed. It isn't just one speed. It's the intensity and the mindset, the aggression that, and that would have changed that. That would have changed that World Series. So, go figure. Hey, Timmy, thank you.
Ralph, thank you. Always good talking to you.
I'm glad we're getting these. The station, me on behalf of the station, getting these memories of Willie down. So, and it's while he's living. We're paying homage to him alive. That feels good.
It does, and we know inevitably, we know what happens, and
to all of us,
to everybody, not just Willie Mays, but everybody.
Right.
And he is a little bit on the shorter end of things than we are, and it's important for us to remember not just Willie Mays, but everybody that that at the end of the day we have to love each other. No matter what it is, no matter what's going on in our world, we have got to look out for each other and love each other no matter what, regardless of whatever political party you want to belong to or whatever religion you think you should be in part of. At the end of the day, we have to love each other, or else if we cannot coexist, there will be no baseball.
Forgive each other and go on too.
Forgive ourselves and for actions so ridiculous, and then begin to forgive other people.
24/7 with some of us.
Yes. And you know, we have a very historical week ahead of us. Tuesday is going to be one of the most important days in the history of our country.
Wednesday.
And Wednesday is the aftermath Wednesday. And
the impeachment process.
Well, whatever happens, we have got to stand together, or else we will never be as strong as we once have been. So, I mean,
when people are complaining about the quality of candidates on both sides, I'm not taking sides. I think they're both equally
idiotic.
They're both cretins, let's put it that way. But that notwithstanding, what they forget is that they represent the people. The people create these people. They don't create themselves. If it weren't for the people voting for them, supporting their ideology, standing back while they steal from us, while they combine with big business to absolutely rob us blind.
Well, I think one thing I don't know if we always talk about this enough either, Ralph, is we've allowed the media to make our own decisions. We allow the media to report whatever their take on things is, and then many people will go, okay, well, that's the truth then. That's what I want to believe, whether I listen to Fox TV or I listen to CNN. And one person will watch one program on one network, and another will watch another program and another network, and that's what they'll believe. What they hear is what they believe. And that's a big problem too. Yes, we create our government, absolutely, and we are responsible as people to represent us collectively. But when we're too stupid and too lazy to want to really go figure it out for ourselves, we just turn on the television and we let them make up our mind for us.
Very good point.
And I think that's a huge problem in our society today. And, it's an unfortunate thing, but the media has great power over what we want to think and believe.
Right.
And ultimately, individually, we still have to be responsible for what we believe in. And, but the media has a great hold on our minds, and that's a tragedy. It really, truly is.
Thank you, Timmy.
I love you, Big Ralph.
Time has run out, and we never do have enough of that. And I'm happy to honor both of our heroes. Your dad for you, and Willie for both of us. So, and your dad's becoming a hero to me. Well, I never got to meet him, and to be honest with you, I didn't root for him like I rooted for some of the other Giants. He was a good, solid catcher.
Yeah.
I'm learning he was more than that. He was a good, solid human being, and that's so much more important.
It is. And I would love to know that there's a sliver of him in me today, just a little bit, And
I don't know there is, Timmy.
I would. I want there to be a sliver of Willie and Mac and, a lot of these guys that I was fortunate and blessed enough to be around, that they're a part of me, and I'm so grateful for that.
Right. Nice. This is terrific. Thank you, sir.
Okay.
And,
make sure you turn your clocks back tonight, Ralph, though. Turn your clock back, okay?
I won't even use my turn the clock back joke that I've used for 30 years that's made everybody groan, just to keep this on a high level that you deserve. So I will be turning my clock back. Yes, I will. If not, the computer will do it for me. We're getting in that state, getting to the stage. The computer does everything. What time is it? Well, ask the computer.
I'm lazy.
We would have a watch.
Let the computer do it.
Right, or the little device, whatever your device is. Are you still alive? Let me look at the device. Oh, I took a picture of myself. I guess I am. And that in itself is a shock.
Oh, my goodness.
Timmy, next.
It's like a Kurt Vonnegut novel, for crying out loud.
Oh, yes. Kurt Vonnegut, Dresden, wasn't it? Didn't he write about Dresden?
Right.
Yeah, and never mentioned.
You know, and we all would sit around and watch television, right? That was what was it? Fahrenheit 451? Was that Kurt Vonnegut?
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. He wrote an entire book about the situation, never once mentioning the Holocaust. It's an amazing, which is amazing. If you think about it, very bright guy and a great author.
Right.
Timmy, till that time, do it on the flip-flop next week.
Be well, Ralph. Be good.
You too.
Safe. Take care.
Stay away from your demons, and I'll stay away from mine.
I shall. Take good care.
See you next week.
Thank you, everybody. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Adios, everybody. Keep on keeping on.